Duel Overload comes out in 2 weeks, and it's going to be pretty crazy. This 100 card completely ultra rare set features a ton of fantastic reprints as well as imports from the OCG. I was going to make one top 10 video for the best cards in the set, but upon doing that I realized that there were way too many, so we're actually going to break it up into 2 parts. In today's video we're going to talk about the top 10 reprints out of Duel Overload, cards that have already been printed in the past but really needed a new printing. These cards that I'm talking about in today's video are going to fall under different criteria. For example, I want to look at cards that are really needed in terms of reprints, things that were very expensive or hard to find. I also want to look at cards that are really likely to be played in the upcoming format, so we're going to have 1 week of this set being released, and then a Master Rule 5 is going to go into effect, which is huge. And I also just want to talk about cards that have a lot of excitement surrounding them just in general, cards that the community really seems to be happy about getting reprinted in this set. You'll probably want to wait until the set is actually released to actually purchase the singles from Duel Overload, but if you are purchasing singles down the road, or if you're purchasing sealed product right now, make sure to use my link to tcgplayer.com in the description below. A portion of those sales go right back into the channel. At number 10, we have all 4 of the alternate artwork cards released in this set. So these were revealed in the OCG a little while ago, and when we saw them, we weren't really sure when they would come to the TCG, but apparently it wasn't that long. You have Skystriker Ace Kagari, you have Cyber Dragon Infinity, Chaos Dragon Levianeer, and Tour Guide from the Underworld. So these cards are all pretty decent cards. I mean, they're really good choices. Kagari isn't so relevant anymore, but I think there'll be a lot of Cyber Dragon players excited to play the new artwork, and Levianeer is currently seen play in a lot of Dragon Link and Rocket strategies. Tour Guide from the Underworld is also a fantastic choice because it just went to 2 copies per deck, and while I know that all of these cards maybe aren't the most valuable cards from this set, they're really cool to see, and I think that Yu-Gi-Oh! Really could use more alternate artwork releases. We don't see that too often, so whenever it happens, it seems like the community gets really excited, and I'm pretty sure these are going to be some pretty fun pulls from this set. At number 9, we have Cyber Emergency, and this is going to be one of a couple Battles of Legend cards in this video, because Battles of Legend cards prior to this set, Duel Overload, really have not been reprinted that often. We've seen it happen a few times, but generally speaking, cards that have been released in Battles of Legend seem to stick to that set for quite a while. Cyber Emergency was recently, like not too long ago, just a couple formats ago, way over like $40, which is absolutely absurd. That was back when Cyber Dragon Orcas was a top strategy, but even after that, before this reprint was announced, it was still quite expensive. If you're trying to play Cyber Dragons, an already fan favorite strategy, you need to have 3 copies of this card. A reprint for this card was long overdue, and I think a lot of Cyber Dragon players are going to be really excited to finally get their hands on a playset for hopefully not $30 or $40 a copy, but I think including this card in this set is a great choice alongside that new alternate artwork of Cyber Dragon Infinity, as well as the first non-common printing of Cybernetic Overflow. Next up, we have 2 different Madolche monsters that right now are extremely expensive. Madolche Mageline only has 1 printing from way back in 2012, and the rank 5 Madolche monster, Chocolate a la Mode, only has 1 printing way back in 2015. Both of these cards have been extremely expensive. Madolche actually has a handful of regional tops from the past couple years. They've gotten a lot of great support, and they are likely to be a strong candidate as a rogue strategy in Master Rule 5. A lot of people maybe even asked for more Madolche cards to be reprinted in this set, but at least we got these 2, and that is going to drastically lower their price in the upcoming weeks. These reprints are especially welcome because there's not really another set where you could put a lot of Madolche reprints. I suppose you could put them in an OTS pack, but even that is a little bit strange. But Duel Overload has a lot of random sort of 1 of or 2 of archetype reprints in it, so this is a perfect spot for these 2 Madolche cards. Next up, we have another pair of monster cards, Magical Musketeer Caspar and Starfire. So both of these cards were really short printed out of Spirit Warriors, and Magical Muskets are a pretty viable strategy. They have several tops just like Madolche's. When Magical Musketeer Max came out a little while ago in the last Battles of Legend last summer, a lot of people wanted to play this deck, but Starfire and Caspar were just too expensive. I really appreciate the design philosophy with this set. Konami gave us a bunch of new cards that are really powerful from the OCG, but also there's a bunch of really great reprints for rogue strategies that otherwise had like 1 or 2 very expensive cards. While it might seem like a weird choice, I think Dingirsu, the Orcas of the Evening Star, is a great decision for Konami to include in Duel Overload. Orcas as an overall strategy, are not very good right now, but this card is a very powerful generic rank 8 monster that almost any deck playing level 8 monsters wants to have at least 1 copy of. It did technically have 1 reprint already, but that reprint reprint was in a higher rarity, an ultimate rare out of an OTS pack, so this is going to be a budget option for players that are playing any sort of deck with rank 8 monsters. By putting Dingirsu in Duel Overload, even if it's not super relevant right now, it prevents a future price spike of this card if Orcas ever come off the ban list. At number 5, we have the Last Warrior from Another Planet. In yesterday's video, I talked about how Waking the Dragon was a lot stronger under Master Rule 5, and this is truly one of the best things that you can summon off of that card. The problem though is that the most recent printing of this card that only has 2 printings was way back in 2005. Both the 2003 Labyrinth of Nightmare version of this card and the 2005 Dark Beginning 2 version of this card were over $20, so not really budget friendly, and near mint versions of this card have been flying off of the market for years just because there's so few copies in circulation. This set though fortunately reprints the card as an easy to get ultra rare, so hopefully many more players playing Waking the Dragon get their hands on this fantastic option. At number 4, we have Infinite Impermanence. So right now this card has 1 original print, which is still pretty expensive, the secret rare, and 1 reprint, which is over $40. This card right now is not nearly as popular as it has been in the past, but it likely will be good in the future, I can almost guarantee it. Right now though, if you're playing Altergeist or Guru or Paleozoics or Traptrix or any just other trap decks in general, you're going to want 3 copies of this card. I've talked about in the past at length about how this card is so much stronger than Effect Veiler in a lot of cases, and while Effect Veiler will still be the go-to budget option for a lot of players, it's really cool that Infinite Impermanence receives another reprint. I would not be surprised if in like 6 months from now or a year from now we find this card as a common in a structure deck, very similar to like Pot of Desires or Ash Blossom or those types of cards, but at least for right now we have 1 more reprint to hopefully make this card a little bit more budget friendly. Next up we have Signup Mining. Now this card prior to this release has only been printed 1 time in Dark Neostorm. This was actually one of the first cards revealed out of Duel Overload and got a lot of people excited. This is a must-have 3 of in almost any Cyberse deck, Marincess and Salamangreats and so many others, and that's a really great reason to reprint it in this set. This card has been pretty expensive in the past, $40 and $50 at some points, so a reprint is a little bit overdue, but I'm glad to finally have it, and I think a lot of budget players that are using Cyber strategies are really excited for this card. At number 2, we have Salim All Mirage. So this was not a card that we knew right up until a few days ago, March 3rd, when all of the European YouTubers revealed the entire set, and this was really out there. I mean, this is really exciting. Once again, another Battles of Legend card that a lot of people did not expect to get reprinted. Currently, before this announcement, this card was sitting at $30. In the past, it's been closer to $20, but right now it's seen a ton of play. It's in every single Invoke Should All list. You want to play in Cyber Dragons, you want to play in a lot of strategies. It might get worse when Master Rule 5 goes into effect, but at least until then we have a new version of it that you can play in a lot of decks. I know a lot of Altergeist players and Invoked players and Cyber Dragon players and plenty of other players are really excited to see this card finally reprinted, and I am as well, because yes, this card is not even a year old. It did come out last summer, but it still was pretty expensive considering it's not really that good on the field. It's mostly just played for the Link Arrow and getting a monster in the graveyard, so this reprint is really exciting for a lot of players, and I hope a lot more people pick up decks that can use Salim All Mirage. Before I get to my number 1 choice, I want to give a couple honorable mentions. This is really how you know this set is so good. I was originally, like I said at the beginning of the video, only going to do 1 top 10 list for all the cards in the set, but then even after making it from a top 10 into 2 top 10s, so a top 20, I still could not fit in all the cards that I wanted to talk about. The 2 honorable mentions for reprints that maybe aren't as exciting as the other ones but are still pretty welcome are Golden Castle of Stromberg and Witchcrafter Creation. Both of these cards have not seen reprints before, like many of the other choices on this list. A lot of people are going to be excited to pick them up at not so expensive prices. And finally, at the number 1 spot, you probably already guessed it, it's Fantastical Dragon Phantasme. At one point this card was actually over $100 a copy, and it is a very welcome reprint. People have been asking about this card for months, and while right now it's not the most popular that it's ever been, it is still a great reprint. I know that some people are going to complain, even with all these great new cards and reprints, that Pot of Extravagance was not in this set, and while I sympathize with those players because being a budget player right now is really tough, I mean hopefully this set will help out, but just in general I want to say that in reality it's very difficult for Konami to make a reprint set, even with all of these great reprints, that'll truly satisfy every single player. Duel Devastator last year was an almost perfect set, but a lot of players in that comment section said things like, well, why isn't Fantastical Dragon Phantasme in it? It needs to be there. Now that Phantasme is getting reprinted in another set, this one, Duel Overload, you get comments from people saying, well, why isn't Extravagance in here as well? The fact of the matter is that Konami cannot possibly reprint every single card in one set. That's not really how it works. So I think we should just be happy to have all of these great reprints, the ones that I talked about and even more that I couldn't talk about in today's video, as well as all the really solid imports in this set. The fact of the matter is that while Fantastical Dragon Phantasme might be worse under Master Rule 5, so this might seem like a weird time to reprint it, I think that Link Monsters are still going to be really popular even under the new Master Rule, so this card will likely be a strong choice in the coming months. We still have that Extravagance coming up in the Toon set that was very recently leaked, so hopefully you guys can get that card before the NAWCQ. I think that set released like on the Friday of that event, so while it might not be super cheap, at least not that Friday, it'll still be a little bit more accessible for the average player. Anyway though, hope you guys enjoyed today's discussion video on Duel Overload. The set is fantastic, and I can't wait to talk about the great imports from the OCG in a video later on this week. I'll see you later though. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.